The Democratic Alliance Federal Council Chairperson Helen Zille says that the new Minister of Human Settlements, Thembi Nkadimeng, should be placed on special leave because of her links to the VBS Mutual Bank heist. Now, last night, President Cyril Ramaphosa reshuffled his cabinet, moving Nkadimeng to the Human Settlements portfolio. Ramaphosa appointed Human Settlements Minister Mamoloko Kubayi to replace Nkadimeng as the new Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. Now, these changes to the National Executive are effective immediately, but for analysis on these moves and what necessitated them, we joined virtually now by political analyst Sandile Swana. Sandile, good morning and thanks for being with us here on Morning Live.
Good morning to you, Sakina, and good morning also to your viewers.
Straight into it, what's your view about that cabinet reshuffle that saw Mamoloko Kubayi replace Thembi Nkadimeng as Justice Minister while Simelane now takes over the Human Settlements portfolio?
Yes. First of all, I suppose I agree with the people who call it a straight swap. It is a straight swap, and you know, there are troublemakers in the cabinet, like Kubayi, if you like, that you would have said maybe the president would have wanted to do something to them, but it was not to be. So it's a straight swap. Nkadimeng comes from human settlements. She's worked in local government, so if she goes to human settlement, there is potential there that she could be able to cope with a familiar environment. Kubayi, on the other hand, has had short stints in other cabinet positions, not necessarily in the security cluster, but she has been around for some time.
Now, Sandile, there has, of course, for a while now been mounting pressure on President Ramaphosa to remove Thembi Simelane from the justice portfolio. And this, of course, due to serious allegations of corruptions that have been leveled against her. So given those allegations, do you think that the president should have removed her altogether, or, as Helen Zille says, perhaps placed her on special leave?
I'll say that, you know, unfortunately, Helen Zille is in a very awkward position because she made it clear to the international world and to the nation of South Africa that she is there to protect Cyril Ramaphosa, more specifically from the Phala scandal, which is currently in the courts. And people such as ATM and Vuyo Zungula are starting to win in that battle to show that the president has a case to answer. But Zille's job and the DA's job, supported by BLSA, is to protect one cabinet member, which is Ramaphosa, whilst diligently chasing down Nkadimeng, who has done wrong in some ways or the other. Now, in the ANC tradition, you do not get removed from your job until the NPA starts acting decisively and charging you in court. And in protecting Ramaphosa, who has done that all the time, Zille has got to respect that there's not going to be any special leave. Secondly, previously they've removed Zizi Kodwa, and the next thing the charges are dropped. So to act hastily in these matters is not warranted at this stage, more certainly now that we've accepted the ANC tradition of doing things.
We did see the Office of the Public Protector, though, indicate that they would be taking a closer look at that VBS-related loan to Thembi Nkadimeng. We've also seen quite diligent sleuth work there by News 24 and the Daily Maverick, who have effectively done a lifestyle audit on Thembi Nkadimeng. Not sure if you've seen that, Sandile, but what do you make of that? Because it's quite a detailed report in two parts at this stage that the news outlets have done on Nkadimeng.
So what I would say about that is that we have a precedent or a guideline on it, which was issued by Bathabile Dlamini, which says that as NEC members of the African National Congress, we have smaller nyana skeletons. So a senior member of the ANC to do a research on them and to do an investigation of them, and you discover that there are Smolanyana skeletons. You go there knowing that you are going to find the Smolanyana skeletons. Now you've found them, they are here. And the others you've not investigated also have got their own Smolanyana skeletons, if we accept that thesis. So it is, in terms of ANC tradition, which is what Ramaphosa is using here, these things will not be acted upon by Ramaphosa or the ANC until the person has been charged by the NPA and appeared in court. They will then say, please step aside temporarily. We'll bring you back when the matter is finished. So, but from a moral perspective, which I suppose is where your question is coming from, professional ethics and so on, we as citizens should have demanded that all these people with their Smolanyana skeletons should not be in the cabinet. Some of us have made those calls, but those calls have never been heeded. What has been heeded is that innocent until proven guilty and all those types of things.
So looking at the broader picture here, this happens against the backdrop of a government of national unity, and obviously there's a lot been said about how this will ultimately play out and the effect that it's likely to have on those who have joined this government of national unity. So looking at the ANC in this regard and this move, do you think that this will impact on the intra-party political dynamics of the ANC in any significant way, Sandile?
The way Ramaphosa has handled it, he has handled it well, because now he accommodates all those who are suspected of state capture, because that's the pressure coming on Nkadimeng comes from the state capture, anti-state capture brigade of big business and the DA, which is very selective, by the way, in its approach. So we've got to accept that it's a unity building exercise that Ramaphosa is involved in.
So when you say the DA is selective in its approach, please expand upon that.
You see, Ramaphosa himself is implicated in matters. And there are many others who are implicated in matters, but in order to make this deal work, so the crooks in the ANC are in the MKP, they are in the ANC, some of them, both factions have got these crooks that ideally, morally, we should be getting rid of all of them. But if you want to have the GNU working, there are some crooks you've got to accommodate. Otherwise, the ANC might not be there altogether. You might send all of them to prison. So Nkadimeng is being targeted not because he's the worst participant in the VBS scandal. The VBS scandal is an ANC scandal, actually. And there are many senior ANC members who are there. The Pala issue, and some of them were implicated in the Nkandla issue in any way, and many other issues. So when you say you are cleaning up, you know, you are chasing people who have got criminal suspicions around them, then you've got to have a full list of them and go for all of them. That's what I mean.
So if we look at the fact that the president, of course, uses his presidential prerogative to make these changes, you mentioned something earlier where you said that the Minister of Basic Education, Siviwe Kwagube, is a troublemaker. And I would imagine you were suggesting that perhaps he should have looked more broadly at moving people around. Just explain what your thoughts were there.
My thoughts are that, you know, Professor Metcalf explained, Mary Metcalf explained the process that they took to get this bill to where it is. I'm talking about the nation now in Parliament and all those things. And the courts have proclaimed what they want to see happening in this. And this bill is actually in line with all of that. Now, you discover that she went, for instance, to Netlek. First of all, she started by boycotting the signing of the bill, which is unusual for a cabinet minister in South Africa, probably a first. And then now she went to Netlek, and then we discover that other unions were not even involved in that process, where she said she signed an agreement with Solidarity and what have you and what have you. It was a very selective thing that she did and announced it. So that is insolence. That is the bringing of the cabinet into disrepute about a very sensitive matter, a matter that has got racial connotations, whereby she is probably explicitly supporting the right wing of South Africa, racial right wing, white supremacists of one kind or the other, against the wishes of the black majority who need to be accommodated educationally in terms of language and so on, and admissions and so on and so forth. So to me, ideally, you would have wanted to say this person is starting to be inconsistent with the vision of a non-racial South Africa and is promoting right-wing tendencies in the cabinet. And therefore, I would want to move them out of the cabinet or to a portfolio that will be less demanding for them.
And just coming back to Nkadimeng and Kubayi, so by making this move, is the president in some or other way acknowledging that there is a problem with Thembi Nkadimeng one way or another? And if so, why then move her sideways as opposed to removing her altogether from his cabinet?
It's the interpretation of the problem from an ANC perspective. The ANC perspective would say we have the DA, we have Business Leadership South Africa or BLSA, and so on, who want to access records at the Department of Justice of the state capture and to chase state capture members. And a lot of the state capture implicated people are actually cabinet ministers of the ANC. So the problem is that they want somebody there who is the DA, and they want somebody there who's going to, if they say they want that record and that record, to give them those records, who's going to cooperate with their agenda. But the ANC perspective is that if we are holding a cabinet position, you've also got to protect the ANC and protect its cadres. So Nkadimeng is vulnerable because they are able to dig up her skeletons. So you remove Nkadimeng there, and you put somebody that it will be almost impossible to find leverage by finding skeletons and then using those to dig that person out of the position. So that is how the ANC perspective would be on this.
Interesting. Thanks so much, Sandile Swana, political analyst, speaking on last night's cabinet reshuffle.